Let us first understand how a camera works. Let us say there is a flower which we want to photograph. The light rays from the flower will fall onto the convex lens of the camera and it will converge behind the lens to form an image. This image will be formed on the sensor of the camera. The information about the image will be sent to the processor of the camera, and from there the image will be processed and displayed on the LCD screen of the camera. Now let us understand how the human eye functions. Say again there is a flower in front of the human eye. Just like the camera, the human eye also has a lens within it. The light rays reflected from the flower will enter the eye and fall upon the lens. They will converge behind the lens to form an image. This image will be formed on the screen of the human eye. The information received on the screen will be transmitted to the brain in the form of electric signals. Here it will be processed and an image will be formed in front of us. The screen or the sensor on which the image is formed is called the retina. The nerve which takes the information to the brain is called the optic nerve. The light rays will enter the eye through a hole called the pupil. The pupil is black in color because the light that falls on it does not come out. The lens of the eye is supported by a muscle body known as the ciliary muscles. A thin membrane covers the eyeball. This is called the cornea. A muscle body which changes the size of the pupil and gives color to the eye is called the iris. The inside of the eyeball is filled with a fluid known as the vitreous humor. The space between the eye lens and the cornea is filled by a fluid called aqueous humor. As you will see, both the eye and the camera function on the same principles. What is power of accommodation? To understand that, first we need to know what is focal length. Focal length is the distance between the center of the lens and the point at which the light rays are focused by the lens. The red line denotes the focal length, in this case, by letter F. Now, is there an easier way to measure the focal length? For this, we need to understand two more variables. First, we need to get the distance between the object and the lens. Let us call this distance U. Second, we want to know the distance between the lens and the image. Let us call this distance V. It is seen that F, U and V are related to each other by the equation 1 upon F is equal to 1 upon U plus 1 upon V. Let us say the distance between the lens and the screen remains fixed. In such a case, for a lens with a given focal length, and when the screen is at the same distance, it is necessary that the object also must be placed at one particular distance. In other words, if we go back to the equation where the F, which is the focal length of the lens, and the V, which is the distance between the lens and the screen, is fixed. In such a case, U also has to be constant. Meaning, in other words, if the object is placed at a different distance, then a clear image will not be formed. Then how can you see two objects which are at different distances? This is precisely the reason why we change lenses in a camera. When the distance of the object changes from the camera, we use a lens of a different focal length. That is, if U changes, we also change the F. Now let us understand how the human eye does the same job. As you can see, the image of the flower is formed by the lens onto the screen. Now, let us say we want to look at the mountain which is far away from our current sight. The ciliary muscles which hold the lens will be relaxed and thereby the lens will also be relaxed. It suitably changes the shape of the lens so that the light rays coming from a far away distant object also form an image on the screen of the eye. When nearby objects are to be seen, the ciliary muscles of the eye contract and they thicken the lens from the center, hence the lens bulges and changes its shape, becoming a more thicker lens. Human eye does not have to keep changing lenses to see objects at different distances. It does this job well. Now let us study another important aspect, colors. And why is this world so colorful? First, we need to understand what are colors. To understand what are colors, we need to know what light is made up of. Light is made up of wavelengths. Wavelengths meaning waves of different lengths. For instance, a wavelength may be small, of only 400 nanometers. Or it may be big, of 665 nanometers. So what happens? Say a flower is again in front of your eye. The light rays coming from the flower form an image on the retina of the eye. These light rays are in actual made up of wavelengths. When the light rays fall on the retina, this information about the wavelengths is sensed by the retina and transmitted to the brain. Our brain associates different lengths of waves with different colors. When the waves are of around 400 nanometers, the brain associates the color violet with them. And when these waves are as big as 665 nanometers, the brain gives them a color red. Broadly, the different sizes of wavelengths are classified into 7 broad colors, known as the Vibgyor or the rainbow colors. So this is how a brain transforms an object into a colorful object. The sensors of the retina which sense the wavelength are called the rods and the cones. Rods and cones are the two different types of photoreceptor cells in the retina. Rods are sensitive to dim light and show us images in black, white and grey, while cones are sensitive to bright light and show the different colors. Because cones do not work in dim light, that is why at night we generally see more of black. So coming back to our first question, colors are the meanings given by the brain to the different wavelengths of light. Colors is how our brain interprets and presents to us the different wavelengths of light. Now, let us further understand why is our world so colorful. Different materials or objects absorb and reflect different wavelengths of light. For example, let us say a white light, which comprises of 7 different colors, falls on a cap, which is red in color. This red cap absorbs the smaller wavelengths of light and reflects back the longer wavelengths of light, which are read in our brain as red color. Hence, the cap appears to us as red. A white color object reflects back all the wavelengths of light and hence it appears white, while a black color object absorbs all the wavelengths of light and hence it appears black, which is also why black color objects and clothes are avoided as they trap more heat as they absorb all the wavelengths. Different wavelengths of light refract at different angles. For this, let us say a white light falls on a prism which is made up of glass. When the white light falls on the base of the prism, the white light refracts and splits into 7 colors. When these light rays are moving out of the prism, they refract again. Third phenomena is scattering of light. Light has a tendency to scatter when it hits small particles. For instance, the particles in the Earth's atmosphere are small enough to scatter the smaller wavelengths of light. Hence, the sky generally appears bluish during the day. This is the phenomenon